Right, I have mentioned before about my outside shop. So this is just going to be a real quick outside tour of the shop. As you can see, it is a mess. You get it's a mess, and it's not ideal for working. I got stuff everywhere, and i- it's it's a lot. However, I'm just going to run through a few things real quick, because like I was mentioning, especially when I was talking about General International in one of my other videos. So this is a this is my drill press. That's my belt disc sander, and then that's my table saw, and then I have a pen lathe and mortiser in the back. I'll just do a quick rundown of all these. So basically, starting here with the drill press. Um, it was something that once again was warranty. Actually, all the things I just mentioned were either warranty or clearance due to inavailability and stuff like that. So this particular one had issues. It was on the sales floor, and basically what happened is when one unit broke, they would just take parts off this one to fix the other one, and then by the time it came around for someone in that department, and that's when I started at that company, I had to replace all the parts. And then, as I mentioned, that's when General started having some issues. Um, and there were just things that just became unavailable. And as I also mentioned in my other videos, there's a few companies that made basically the same things, just different colors and et cetera, et cetera. So if I remember correctly with this one, once again, this was some time ago. If I remember, it was missing. I was missing one of the handles, and I understand that there's only two of the three, but growing up on my dad's drill press, I don't know if it was something that he did on purpose or what. I should ask him, but he always only had one, and I got used to that. Having two is nice as well, but yeah, sure, you can have all three, but I don't know, I just never used it kind of thing. Um, I did have to replace the light, which was that's honestly a non-issue thing because that's such a small thing. The biggest one here, this is cast. This is cast steel. As you can see there, or hopefully you could see there, that is gray and not green. So that was a piece that I had to get from a different manufacturer, which then also included I had to get the handle here, the bolt there. If I remember correctly, I also had to get a new rack and a new handle. I might have even needed a belt. And that seems like a lot. And then you go, well, why did you get that? Or if you could get a new one. And it was cost, obviously. It was much cheaper for me to buy this at a, like I said, I was fortunate. I got this at a heavily discounted price, and then I was able to buy all the other parts. And then this drill press was still probably a third of the price if I were to buy this as a new unit in a different brand, because like I was saying, we couldn't get General at the time. Same thing with my belt disc sander. Unfortunately, I haven't gone around to actually fixing that one yet. This one's nice. It's the same general idea as the small one I have in the basement, but obviously much bigger. So it's got I believe it's a 6x48 belt, whereas the other one's, I think, a 1x30 with a 5-inch disc, and I believe this one is either a 10 or 12-inch disc. Basically, what's wrong with this one, I believe it got damaged in transport from one store to another. So it wasn't a manufacturing thing, so it wasn't warranty, and it was something that they just couldn't move because, well, it didn't run properly. So I bought parts for it, and I just, like I said, I just haven't gone around to actually fixing it. But basically, the main shaft is bent, so that'll be a project. That'll be a big project to rip apart and fix. Um, over here, this one was strictly due to availability issues and stuff like that. And as I was saying, when I was working at a tool store, this is one of our brands, and then they had issues supplying, and we would get pieces in, and no one knew when other stuff was coming in, and they kind of were on the verge of what seemed like bankruptcy at that time. And like I said, I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with the quality. I know I mentioned my jointer in another video saying, yeah, there was a manufacturer defect. Obviously, that does happen. And I believe that particular one happened is because they got, if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, but they got bought out by another company. And the other companies had cheaper tools, but then they just put their brand, the general brand, on everything because it was the better brand. And then they started selling things under the better brand, and they just were shipping stuff out that wouldn't pass quality control, is my understanding. Like I said, don't quote me on any of that. That's kind of what I've heard through the grapevine, and that was my understanding, but I don't know. I can't source anyone on that. But in particular, this table saw, it's a job site saw. You can see it's got the folding base. I mean, you kind of see. I mean, like I said, I got garbage everywhere and stuff everywhere. However, these came and it was just the saw, no base, and they were very inexpensive. And because I worked there, there's employee discounts and stuff like that. And I got this for a really good deal. And then I ended up buying a second one for my dad, and then a third one for my brother. And then it was probably almost a year later that the bases randomly showed up. And then I bought one for me and one for my brother. But like I literally was holding on to parts of tools for well over a year, and then managed to put it all together. My dad made his own base and outfeed tables and everything. But yeah. So like I was saying, that this one was more availability issue. And they couldn't sell them really because, like, for that reason, essentially, like, it needs that base because parts of the tool, I'm gonna see if we can go here, like the motor and stuff hang below the base, so you can't just put this on a tabletop. You need to have an open base kind of thing. But anyways, that was that one. And then now I'm over to my mini lathe. This is a pen lathe. This one was a little more tricky because there was no other like brand. Luckily, the main problems with it were it was missing the pulleys. Ironically, these are a second set of pulleys that I've done. And then also it didn't have the live center, or because this was a pen lathe, there's normally a spindle. I've also, for this one, invested in also getting a spur center. Luckily with lathes, they're mainly here. They're MT1 or MT2. That's Morse taper 1 or Morse taper 2, and that's just the taper of the shaft that fits into the pieces. So those are relatively generic. So I bought a live center, and I bought a spur center, and then I also bought an actual pen spindle for it. I also went to one place that is just has nothing to do with this type of tools, but they sell O-rings and belts and gaskets and all sorts of things. And that's where I bought two originally for these, and then over time I misplaced one, and then one broke just because they are just rubber, and like I said, my shop's not heated or cooled or anything, so the climate is harsh on them. These particular ones here, you could see that there's actually like two smaller ones. Those are actually gaskets, or essentially like big rubber bands kind of thing, from a small engine that I got from my friend locally who does motorcycle mechanics, small engine repair, and things like that. He gave me a old motor that needed work, or sorry, he had an old motor that needed work, and then he had another one that he took parts from to, turn two into one kind of thing, and the other one was just too far gone. So and he gave it to me, and I scrapped it for the aluminum, the steel, etc. And but as I was taking it apart, there's these, and they fit, and they turn it, and then if they do break, like, I mean, there may be a little, it could be a bit tighter, but I've used it in this setup and it works. And like I said, if they do break, they were literally just free. Like, once again, I know I say it all the time, it was garbage essentially, but yeah. So that's a really quick one on the pen lathe. Maybe not quick, but that was explanation on the pen lathe. And then this is my mortising tool. This was probably one of my best finds or scores, or however you want to say. It is a tilting head, so I can do mortises on angle. Um, for people who don't know really what a mortising tool is, it's a drill press that makes square holes, is the basic layman's term kind of way of explaining kind of thing. This one had issues. It came back and it was rough. I had to get an entire different base. I believe this base used to be green and now it's black because I had to order it from a different manufacturer that someone somehow managed to snap all that cast. Even still, you could see this handle's broken, but I can use it the way it is. I thought I ordered them, but it might have been one of those things where I got one and not the other and misplaced it or order canceled or whatever. If I remember correctly, was it this one? I think there was stuff in the motor, and I think the top of this was kind of dented down, and I flattened it back up a bit. I could be mistaken because honestly, this is my second one. I did buy another one that wasn't a tilting head, and it was in way worse shape than this particular one. But anyways, just bought parts for it and fixed it. Currently, you can see the sides are open. That's just so I can change the bit. And like I said, like if you look inside, that's just a Jacobs chuck, just like a drill press. And then the difference is, if you could see there's a holder, and then your bits basically will spin inside that. I can't really do it with one hand here, but that'll spin inside there. And then if you look at the tip, it's got sharp edges, so when you're drilling and pulling down, you can make square holes, and that's for mortise and tenons and things like that in furniture. I haven't used this much. This is a very kind of specialty tool. I want to use it. It's so cool because of that. But of all the tools I was talking about, aside from probably the table saw, hell, this table saw setup, I can't remember exactly what I spent, but if I remember correctly, retail, it was supposed to be with the whole fence, miter gauge, saw, and stand, and everything like that. It was supposed to be, think it was just under $1,000, and I paid nowhere near that. That drill press, I think, was also supposed to be about six. Didn't pay anywhere near that. And then this one, which, because it is so specialty and everything like that, it ironically, I'm pretty sure is, well, not as much as the tables, but I think that's my second most expensive tool, and I think that guy was like $750, $800. These I think were around 2 to 3. Also, just what this is actually sitting on, I have kind of like a cabinet set up, and you can see I've crudely cut this out, and I got a switch here by Craig. That is actually a router switch, and then behind this, I have, once again, by Craig, the insert, and then I have a Freud. Let's see if we can blow that away. There we go. A Freud fence for routers. I believe these are discontinued. I was talking to the rep about these one time, and I think he said they haven't been making these in, it was a few years ago. I bet you this might be something that you haven't made in maybe 10 years. It's really nice quality. I don't know why they switched. I think it might have been one of those things, once again, a company buys another company and they, use a different brand. They might have, instead of having this named as Freud, they named it as something else but made the same thing. Whatever. But the cabinet itself came from when I was doing construction, and this was from a Booster Juice. The reason why the router table's here, this used to be a hole, and underneath was the trash can. Well, now that's where the router's mounted. So I cut the hole out and mounted the plate, and then wired it to the router switch. And then I have a hole out the back. You can't really necessarily see here, I don't think. And that's where the plug runs. And then I have it plugged in. So the router I actually have in this particular router table at the moment is this Hitachi. I also have my plunge router here, just the Mastercraft. And then on the other side, I have my router bits and some guides, router bit sets, bushings, etc. Once again, I got a lot of these router bits for very cheap because of clearances and discontinuing, and it obviously did help being an employee at the place. But I mean, I have sets for making raised panel bits, and like these, what these sets are worth versus what I've paid, kind of thing, is really crazy. As I mentioned before, yeah, I've got lucky because of where I worked, but at the same point, maybe I worked somewhere where I wasn't making as much money, and I just, the discount I used to reinvest into my hobbies. So I worked at a place where maybe the pay wasn't as high as if I worked somewhere else, but then it allowed me to get big discounts and also just availability to certain things that, some of these things actually weren't even really available to the public because of the issues they had. But yeah, and like I said, I was lucky getting that kind of stuff. But I just also want to point out some of the other tools that I kind of more or less started with. This is just my miter saw. This is one of my first purchases. Just a 10-inch. It's not a sliding. It is a compound. I could cut on angles. Same thing. I think if I remember correctly on that one, I think I was maybe 120, 150 bucks. The one underneath it is a table saw this is the table saw I learned on. And I feel really bad because it's got surface rust because my garage leaks and everything, but I'm going to clean this up. And then I'm going to get, I have a friend who's a glazer. I'm going to get a piece of glass to go over top it. And then when I get my bigger garage made and I'll have a lounging area, this will be just kind of like, quote, the coffee table. I have a very deep connection to this saw, which I know maybe seems funny, but it is a Rockwell Beaver. Geez, I honestly I couldn't say how old it is. It's older than me. This was from my dad, and like I said, that's the one I learned on. And then one day he was gonna get rid of it, and then I said he can't get rid of it, so I took it. And that's the saw I ran in my shop before setting this one up, and it still runs great. It's a workhorse. It's got its quirks because just the age and stuff. The fence right now it's upside down just for storage, but the fence is, you got to measure at the front and the back, and you got to make sure it's square kind of thing. Whereas the newer saws, these fences are really nice, and I trust. I've set it up fairly well. I think that I trust the gap between the fence and the blade so much that I just use the tape on here. So if I know if I got to cut something at, and that right now it's set at 2 inches or close to 2 inches. If I set it at 8 or whatever, I know what's coming out is going to be that measurement. Whereas here, obviously, there is no tape or anything like that. It's got a round rail. Round rail is a little less accurate. Um, so you'd have to kind of measure, and like I said, it still worked. It's just this is a little bit more accurate, a little bit faster. But yeah, and just a quick thing. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on because I got other tools crammed in places and wood, and I didn't realize this video was going to be this long. Honestly, I said it was going to be quick, and it hasn't. But I'll think I'll wrap it up here, and yeah, that's just the outdoor garage shop tour. And like I was saying, it's still a mess and still not ideal, but got the tools to get some stuff done and just try to get stuff done. All right.